How to get over an ex. Those of you who have been with me for some time, you know that I love NLP because primarily it's a modeling technology that, when modeling, we look at how does a person think in order to produce a result. And one of the great modelings that happened is when they modeled how do people think when they fall in love, and how do people think differently when they fall out of love. And it turns out that they're exact mirror opposites of each other. That when people fall in love, there's a tendency to cyclically and repetitively associate themselves to the things that they like about that person. So for example, oh, so-and-so is so funny. So-and-so is so this, so that. And they'll cycle, they'll loop. And think for your experience, when you think about what it's like for you when you fall in love, did you do that? I know I did. I remember falling in love and I can see only the good things about that person, right? And you'll find that people cycle through it over and over again. They even say that person's name in a special way, or they look at them in a special way in their mind. This is the process of falling in love. We habitually associate to and focus on what we like about them or love about them. Falling out of love is precisely the opposite. Precisely. Where we actually stop focusing on what we like. We step out of those pictures. Like if you, as a metaphor, it's almost like those things that we like or love about those person, instead of being real, experienced, in the body, in the moment things, it's almost like they become little Polaroids, like little black and white Polaroids. Like you're looking in a picture book, black and white photos. They literally, when you begin to fall out of love with someone, the things that are good about that person in your mind, you will begin to shrink those down and disconnect from those. And you'll notice that you start thinking about them less and less. And you start to notice things that you don't like about that person. Oh, when they chew, whatever. You're going to start to associate the things that you don't like about that person. And what happens is, the more that they do this, the more that you stack the things that you don't like about that person, the stronger that state becomes. And so you'll get the mirror opposite, where suddenly you're cycling through all the things that you don't like. And again, now you're saying their name, only you're saying it in a completely different way. So in the past, I've had clients come to me who could not get over someone. So one was a breakup client, another was a woman who was with an abusive boyfriend, and the reason she hired me is because she could not break up with him, which is very common for people who are in narcissistically abusive relationships, physically abusive relationships, and any form of toxic relationship. One of the hallmarks of a toxic relationship is that we cannot get over that person. It's one of the hallmarks of it. Doesn't mean, by the way, if you can't get over your ex that they were toxic. It is something to watch out for if you're in an abusive relationship, emotionally or physically. It's not uncommon that people will have a hard time getting out of those. And there's a lot of great content on why and how narcissists manipulate you unconsciously to become addicted to them, or to lose your sense of self and feel like you can't leave. But I'm with this client, and she called me. Actually, I was doing outreach, so I asked her to get on a discovery call for her business. I primarily do business coaching, and then when you work with business people, you find out that their personal life is affecting their business more often than not. And so we start talking about her business, and then she goes, there's something else. And I go, okay. And she goes, I came home, and this is why she took the call. I came home, I have this boyfriend, and I blah, 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 and I just can't leave. He's such a sweetie, right? She's associating to the things that she likes. In the beginning of the relationship, he was this, this, and this. So she was associating to the good things about him that happened way back in the beginning of the relationship. Whereas the reason she agreed to work with me was because she came home one day and saw him hanging her child upside down by the foot in the shower, going from hot water to cold water, hot water to cold water, hot water, to torture the kid because the kid said he didn't want to take a shower. And she couldn't leave him. Now, the truth is she could, but psychologically, for some reason, she was in a mental trap where she couldn't. And what was she doing? And then, by the way, this is why she took the call. She worked with me because she knew she didn't have the strength, power, whatever you want to call it, to actually leave the relationship. And when she found out that this guy was abusing her child, not just abusing her emotionally, but abusing her child physically, she had to do something. So what did I do? This natural process of falling out of love, I ran her through it deliberately. Instead of allowing that process to happen naturally, unconsciously, I forced it consciously. So I said, what are the things you like about this guy? And she listed them out. And most of it wasn't true anymore. It was stuff that happened in the past. Remember, your mind is an interesting thing. It likes to conserve energy, right? This brain of yours, this nervous system, hundreds and hundreds of millions. I'm forgetting the evolutionary landscape, but the point is, this is a primitive nervous system. So the brain learns something once and then has a tendency to repeat the learning. So we're actually exquisite learners. The challenge is that once the learning is set, something has to come along neurologically, not logically, neurologically, to change the learning. So beginning of the relationship, oh, he's so sweet, oh, he's so this, has this learning. That's the neural pathway that gets reinforced, created, etc., 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 right? Even though she sees evidence of this guy as an a-hole, her brain has had this learning. It's the default pattern, okay? So what do? I come in and make a neurological intervention, because when you take the thing you like about this person, and you'll notice, if you're trying to get over somebody right now, when you think about the things you like about that person, I bet you're experiencing them in what we would call association, right? So you're seeing through your own eyes as if you're there when you think about that thing you like. And I bet you the images are pretty big, they're pretty bright, they're pretty close, and you feel pretty intensely, yeah? This is why it's hard to get over them, because you're associated to what you like. So with her, what I said is, I want you to take those things, and she had about 5, and we're going to make a movie where you play all 5 of them back to back. And she said, okay. And then once we played them out, I had her step out of the movie so she saw herself in it and shrink the picture down so it was the size of a postage stamp. And every time she shrank the image down, notice how the feeling changed. So that she would step out, shrink the feeling down, push it off into the distance, and the more that you do that, the less you'll feel those feelings. To the point where I ran her through that with all 5 things, and the feelings were gone. So suddenly, when she would think about those things that she liked, they weren't there. She knew what those things were logically, but when you change the perspective, the internal perspective, the way that you feel changes. That was a neurological intervention that shifted how she felt about him. So once I had done that, I took her, and this is not my pattern, by the way. This is, I think, Richard Bandler, who modeled this when he was working with women at battered women. Women who are in shelters for being abused. Work, mouth. Okay. Then I had her list, what are the things you don't like? Well, he abused my kid. What else didn't you like? This, and this. Treats me like this. He was mooching off of her. And so we listed them out, and I did the exact opposite. I had her make those images big, bright, and close. associate to them. So she was there reliving the worst parts of the relationship over and over again. And I cycled her through that over and over and over and over until her nervous system shifted. Something snapped. And she goes, freak this guy. You know, that was not the word she used. And she was done. She was done. There were some logistical issues. She had to get him to move out. And she was dealing with a narcissist. So instead of doing all that, she moved out and said, you have 30 days to get out of the house or whatever. The point is, once you make the internal shift where you stop associating to the good things and you start associating to the bad things, you will get over that person. And I've done this multiple times. I had another client who went through a breakup and we had to do this. And I'll be honest, as a coach, it's not my favorite thing in the world to make somebody think about horrible memories. However, sometimes, we tune out bad things because they feel bad. Sometimes you need to pay attention to what sucks so that you can make a new decision so your life itself doesn't suck. And if you're spending so much time obsessing over somebody who doesn't love you, isn't going to be there for you. Now, I want to say a caveat, right? Those of you who know my coaching style, I do 2 types of interventions. And this is what the model, as I'm about to explain it here, this is not necessarily true. This is my model for how I think about coaching. Okay, this is not neurologically true per se. It's just the way I think about it. So the way I think about it is there's 2 levels of intervention. You have a top level and a bottom level, right? Top level is beliefs and values. Lower level is thinking strategy. How is that person thinking habitually? The intervention I just gave you is a lower level strategy. Now, because that lower level strategy can associate so much pain to staying in the relationship, there's a tendency for this strategy to influence the person's upper level thinking, their beliefs and values. There's a tendency. However, it doesn't mean that it always will. And sometimes people screw themselves up so much by not examining the excess meaning they've made about a person or a relationship, about love, about themselves. So another way to not get over somebody is to give excess meaning to that relationship, where you say things like, he or she was the one. The one. Right? Like it's the Matrix and they were Neo. And I'm not trying to look, I've fallen in love. I know what that feels like. Okay, I'm not trying to poo-poo romanticism. However, if there is a God, I highly doubt that he would create a perfect person for you and then make it so that that person doesn't want you just to make you suffer. Like if you believe in soulmates and you actually believe in the one, how could the one be the one if they're not here? So we have to look at how we're believing about these things. Other people will have beliefs like, oh, I'll be alone forever. You have to be really careful about what types of meaning you make at that higher level, because that meaning oftentimes will stop people from engaging in the thinking that leads to getting over that person. And by the way, the sooner you realize that everything that was good about that relationship can still be in your future, the sooner. So one reason people don't move on is because they're getting their value satisfied in that relationship, right? We talked, when a value is something that is important to you. So you have love, connection, fun, adventure. I'm listing some of my values. A breakup can feel like a loss oftentimes because we're losing our access to those values. It's kind of weird to think a lot of times, do we really even love that person? Or do we love what we get to feel when we're with that person? It's an interesting question. And if you realize that you can still have your values fulfilled in your future, then it gets a lot easier. So I hope this was helpful. If you're struggling, right? I don't expect, by the way, anybody who has not been through a practitioner or a master practitioner to be able to do this for yourself. It's unfair to ask you to do this kind of thing for yourself. If you would like help, you can click on my banner where you'll find a link to sign up for a discovery call with me. And I would invite you to do that. And we can radically shorten the amount of time that you spend in heartbreak and get you into a place where you're not only over your ex, right? You ever notice, by the way, the second you get over them is when they hit you back up? Strange phenomenon. Not only do we get you over your ex, but we start to program your subconscious mind so that you have a fulfilling relationship. Remember, your relationship, we will always seek a relationship out. Always, always, always seek a relationship out. That matches our subconscious programming, right? This baffles me. How many people know this to be true and yet will spend more time? What are the 6 signs he's interested in you? If he texts you back, you know what it means. The only thing that matters in terms of your relationship is what's happening inside your mind. And that's going to determine the quality of the relationship in your life. Period. Bar none. There are some skills of relationship, okay? So relating, flirting. More than anything else, though, if you have your subconscious mind aligned with having a relationship that fulfills you, deeply fulfills you, then you will have a relationship that deeply fulfills you. Anyway, thank you for watching the channel. Go ahead, book a discovery call with me. And like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things so more people can get access to this content.